Well, welcome to week 15. You guys made it, and I'm proud to say that based on what I'm seeing in your recommendation reports, everybody is coming out of this class as better, more thoughtful, more audience-centered writers, and that's really what this is all about. In this final mini lecture, I just want to touch on a few things, some of which are housekeeping related and some of which are relevant to the recommendation report and some of which are just sort of useful in putting the rest of the semester into context. So, as you probably know, I'm working through your recommendation reports right now. Many of you have received my feedback. I'm working as diligently as possible to get that back to you. Please understand that I don't like to have these assignments any longer than I have to, but as a writing instructor, there's just a tremendous amount of reading and grading to do, and if I'm going to do it well, it takes a little bit of time. So all of you will get those back from me at some point during today, which is Tuesday, and you can then turn those revisions around by Saturday, and you'll be done with the class. So relative to the recommendation report, one of the things that I want you to continue thinking about, one of the things that I'm seeing as sort of a theme in all of your assignments, and one of the things I want you to really remember about report writing in general is that traditionally when we're asked to report information, we are out gathering information and then we're going to do some type of synthesizing, summarizing, simplifying, translating, calibrating, and we're going to present it to an audience in a way that's useful to them. And that's fundamentally what you're doing with your recommendation report. And there's a couple of things I really want you to pay attention to. One is significance. Okay, so great, you go out and you find this really great information about a tablet, about a vehicle, about a set of thermometers. It doesn't matter. When you start to look at those specifications or those criteria, make sure that you're explaining how the data or the information about those things, how that matters to a particular reader. So always bring it back to their frame of reference. How is this significant to them? How are gigahertz significant? How is battery life significant? How is the drivetrain system in a fleet of vehicles significant to that particular audience? And remember, I intentionally made these scenarios such that you're not writing to experts. So again, we're trying to really develop that skill of being able to articulate very specialized knowledge to a non-expert audience. So keep that in mind. The other thing that I want you to be really mindful of that I found myself writing in the comments to most of these recommendation reports so far is that part of what you're trying to do in a reporting mode is you're trying to give the reader some sense of what your methods look like, what the methods to your madness were, so to speak, so that things seem methodical and systematic. The last thing we want as readers when we're reading a report is to feel like things were done arbitrarily or without real attention to the methodology. And so you really want to articulate to your reader, hey, here's what I looked at, here's what these things mean, here's where I got my information from, here's how I drew my conclusions, and that really helps walk a reader through your thought process, because ultimately somebody should be able to take your methods, the way that you approach this problem, and they should be able to do the same exact thing on their own. So they should have enough information there to be able to replicate that report. And I'm finding that most people aren't doing that. And so I want to know not only where you got your information from and why those are good sources, I also want to know how did you look at these particular things. So when you say reliability, what do you mean by reliability? Or when you say maintenance, what do you mean by maintenance? What did you look at? And the important part about that is that allows me as a reader who's using this to make a decision to see that you really compared apples to apples and that you weren't, kind of applying a different lens or a different set of criteria to each of the options. So I really want you to pay attention to that, because ideally in a reporting sort of mode, you're doing this analysis in a very objective and systemized way that allows you to draw sort of objective conclusions. And so I want you to make sure that that's manifest to the reader, that the reader can see that and really appreciate that, because that's going to be something I think that's really important. And it helps your credibility. It really helps to establish that you've done your due diligence and that you've really thought carefully about this. So I want you to keep that in mind. The final thing I'll say about the recommendation reports, remember that part of your goal here is to allow for easy comparison across the options that you're presenting. So just keep that in mind, that becomes a formatting thing. You can have all of the same information on the page, but if that information isn't formatted in a way that facilitates easy comparison, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult for the reader, and the reader's going to find themselves having to refer to various parts of the document in sort of a really inelegant way, and it's going to be difficult for them to make those comparisons. So think about how you do that, because that's going to go a long way in determining the usefulness of your report. Finally, you know that part of what you're doing today, or over the course of the next week, I guess you could say until Saturday, is you are writing a brief reflection to me, just kind of explaining and playing back to me what you felt the most important lessons from the class were. And that's a really important moment for me because it allows me to see, again, sort of what you were picking up over the last 15 weeks. I can tell you that, generally speaking, what I hope you learned from this class were some frameworks that you can carry with you. The reality of the situation is I can't possibly assign all the types of writing that you're going to see in the workplace. That's particularly true because of the variety of careers that are represented in any given technical writing class. I have people who are in allied health. I have people who are going into business. I have folks that are going into trades. And the landscape of writing in those careers is going to look vastly different depending on which career you choose. So I can't possibly do that. What I try to do, and what I hope the ultimate result of this class is to allow you to be a very adaptive and responsive and resourceful writer, so that when you walk into work and somebody asks you to write something, you have the ability to take stock of the situation and think about the really core principles of writing, which are audience, which are purpose, which are genre, the type of writing you're being asked to do, and formatting. Those four things taken together, when you start to layer those things onto each other and really think about your audience, who they are, what they care about, what they need to know, what they're trying to get out of the document, what their position is, what their frame of mind is going to be when they read it. When you think about your purpose, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to inform? Am I trying to persuade? Am I trying to analyze? Am I trying to instruct? When we layer those two things, just those two things, audience and purpose, and we start to really think carefully about those, we can pretty much adapt to any writing situation. Now, of course, through the course of this semester, we've also talked about very genre or type of writing specific information. We've gone through with a fine-tooth comb what the core elements of a good resume and cover letter are. And my hope is that you have the best resume and cover letter you've ever had, and that you can continuously adapt and use that document to get yourself interviews and get yourself jobs. We've also looked at other very specific types of writing, like the instructions. And I hope that you've really sort of absorbed and will remember the moves of a really great set of instructions, so that when you go to work and you have to write a standard operating procedure or you have to guide somebody through some process, you have that framework to fall back on of staging, coaching, and alerting, because that will immediately help you eliminate some of the problems that are common in that type of writing in the workplace. And of course, we've gone over other types of writing like the technical review, which really challenged you to think about working with a non-expert audience, which frankly, most of the time you're going to be working with. You will certainly work with other subject matter experts, other folks, other technicians, but that's relatively easy communication because you're speaking the same language. What's more challenging is when you're working with a customer or a client or an executive or somebody who has a totally different lens for looking at the world. And so that's really what I hope this course was about for you, was going through a series of experiences. I'm a huge believer that you learn through doing, right? That I could send 1 million PowerPoints to you, but until you put your butt in the chair and you actually have to respond to a rhetorical or communicative situation, you're never really going to fully understand what's required to do those things. And so what I've tried to do through this class is put you through a series of very specific experiences that challenge you to exercise very specific writing muscles. And so what I think I've done is prepared you for maybe not the specific types of writing, but the specific frameworks or the specific contexts of writing, or the specific larger sets of moves that you'll have to make as writers. And so I really hope that that's what you took away from this class. I always extend this to my classes. I want to be a resource for you with regard to writing from here on out. So if you ever need anything, if you need me to look at something and give you feedback on it, I'm happy to do that, whether it's for another class, for something that you're doing at work, something you're doing personally. Please use me as a resource. I really enjoy working with students. The other thing that I really like to offer is that you all are going to go out and do great things in the world and do really interesting and unique things. And I really want to know what the writing looks like in your part of the world. So if you go out and you work for Central Maine Power, I want to know what types of writing you're doing. Or if you go out and work for Maine General, I want to know what types of writing you're doing. Or if you go and you work for a union and you're welding all over the state, I want to know what types of writing you're interacting with, because that allows me to make the course more adaptive. Almost everything that we do in this class has come from recommendations from students or from me talking to students about the writing that they do after they leave KVCC. Ultimately, this course has to be responsive to the needs of the students and what they're going to be doing in their careers. That's part of the mission of the college, is to prepare our students for the local labor market and to prepare them for the work that they're going to be doing. And so please, please, please shoot me an email anytime you do a unique piece of writing, or you see that there's a type of writing that people really struggle with. But Everything from emails to instructions to larger reports. I feel like we've tried to touch on everything, and I apologize if I left anything out that people were burning to do, but the reality is we only have 15 weeks in the semester. So I want to thank you for all of your hard work this semester. Again, I realize that it is a gauntlet and that there's a lot that goes on. My hope is that as recommendation report final drafts come in, I'll be grading those, and you should be able to keep an eye on your weighted total, which is your current grade in the class. And sometime, hopefully within the next 5 days or so, 6 days or so, I'll be able to start computing those final grades and give them to you. And if you have any questions or concerns, please email me. I want to be as transparent as possible about grades. I want you to get out of this class what you really need to get out of it. So with that being said, again, thank you very much. Continue to work on your recommendation reports. Remember, show the method to the madness. And if you do that, I think you're going to end up with a report that really, really responds well to the unique needs and demands of the scenario to which you're responding. So again, thank you very much. Do not hesitate to reach out to me over the next week or so. I'm happy to help you in any way that I can. Okay, thanks guys.